why don't we call it to order? Rob, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Commissioner Gorick? Commissioner Gorick? No.
I see him.
Commissioner
Looks
Volk?
like he's here.
You see him?
Yeah.
He's on the WebEx.
Yeah, I see that.
He just went from mute. He should be okay.
All right, I'll check him off as he's here as he works out his microphone. Commissioner Volpe?
Here.
Commissioner Walowski?
Here.
Commissioner Locks?
Here.
Alternate Albanese?
Here.
Alternate Coles?
Alternate Coles is present.
Alternate Coviello?
Here.
Alternate Salvacool? Secretary Santago?
Santago's here.
Vice Chair Salka?
Salka here.
Chairman Hammersley?
Hammersley's here. We have a quorum.
And just for the record, just for the record, Gorick, or can you?
Can you guys hear me, Commissioner
There
Gordon?
you are. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, my computer's wants to restart, and I'm trying to delay as much as possible. So I'll try to be here. I should be here.
We all just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I've got the flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag
of the United
of the United
States,
States of America,
to the
the
republic
republic
For which
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
and all remain standing for a moment of silent reflection. All right, thank you. And I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting on March 16th, 2021.
Commissioner Salka, so move.
Motion from Salka. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who's that? Oh, Steve is second?
Sorry. Yeah,
Sorry,
Walowski
right,
second.
I wasn't looking. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 7A, Robert and Sherry Buder, site plan application for a 2,520 square foot cold storage addition property located at 611 Old Turnpike Road in the I-1 zone, parcel size 2 acres, SPR number 1815. This was tabled from March 16th. Do we have the applicant here? It looks like there's a Jones Engineering involved on this one. Rob, did you hear from these folks?
Yeah, they sent revised plans in response to comments late this afternoon. There is one call-in user. I don't know if that's the applicant. I'm requesting an unmute. If you've called in, I can only request an unmute, and you have to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
I see they're unmuted.
Yeah. You could always go out of agenda order and maybe come back.
Okay. Does anyone have a problem with that? Okay, let's move on to item 7B, site plan application of Martin DeVito to locate a food truck on property located at 2156 Merida Waterbury Turnpike in a B zone, parcel size 0.66 acres, SPR 1816. I see we got Martin DeVito on the line there. Martin, can you just identify yourself and give us your address?
My name is Martin DeVito, and it's 21 Lancewood Lane, Woolcott, Connecticut, 06716.
Okay. And Martin, could you just give us an idea of what your plans are out there?
Absolutely. I purchased the land about 3 years ago, and what happened was I actually been in the restaurant business about 37 years. And my son, as a matter of fact, moved to Southington. Tony D'Onofrio built this house. So I really want to be closer to them. So my plans are to put a food truck. It's gonna be seasonal. On the paper, I actually put, April to October 31st, because I knew this year I would have to get all the permits and everything else going on. But next year, if everything goes well, April to the week of Thanksgiving, and then I go to Florida for 4 months. I'm not gonna have music. And like I said, my hours are gonna be 10 to 7, Tuesday through Sunday. No music, none of that. And that's basically where I'm at.
Okay, Martin, do you just, so I can get this clear before we open up, just a quick question. Do you have any plan for any lighting of that area?
No, I don't.
So there's no exterior lighting or anything like that that's planned for the parking lot area at all?
No, because like I said, it's gonna be till 7 o'clock, so.
During the winter months, but in October, it's going to be dark out at 7 o'clock.
Well, then I'll go to Florida a lot quicker. I don't mean to, I love Florida.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. It was one of the questions that was asked by the planning department, and I saw that you responded the way you just responded in saying that there was no plan for site lighting of that area. Okay, let's open it up to any commission members who would like to talk or speak on this. Christina Volpe, go ahead. Let me see your hand up. We'll start with you.
Commissioner Volpe,
Fire away.
Commissioner Volpe here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is exciting. I just have a couple of questions. My first and most important being, what type of food do you plan to have at your food truck?
Well, actually, I market my own relish. The name of it, here's a plug, it's Stan's Relish. We just signed with ShopRite, 11 of their stores.
Wow.
We're in our third product, and as a matter of fact, I'm working with the president of the Food Association in Connecticut, and he's been helpful. So the menu is going to consist of hamburgers, hot dogs. I'm going to put a little twist on it because today, with the food trucks, everybody has the knowledge that the food truck is just a slop house. What I'm actually going to do is, hamburgers, hot dogs. I might some salads because everybody don't eat hot dogs, and I actually make my homemade pastas, which in salads and soups, and everything's homemade from scratch, and I'm very proud of my food. So that's it.
You should be, Mr. DeVito. This is Commissioner Volpe again. That's wonderful. Thank you. My other question is that I see here in some of the comments from the planning department that the food truck, is it on wheels and will it be removed to a secondary location every night? Is that the intent?
Yes. Well, when we went for the variance, I have to remove it every night. And it is on wheels. It is a food truck. It's not, Christina, it's a food truck, not a trailer. And it would be moved every night. And what I actually do is I bring it home and then I plug my refrigeration in because I want to keep everything to temp. I don't want to feel like I'm on a camping trip. So yes, it will be removed nightly.
Great. And just lastly, you don't plan to put any sort of signage externally or on the truck? You don't have anything like that, do you?
Well, what I want to do is, and I submitted it to the variance. I am going to put a sign up, and I know I have to get the permit. And what is, I'm actually making my sign. I made it out of crates. It's actually beautiful. I've been working on it for the last 2 weeks. But it's going to be, it's just, there's no lighting on it. It's going to be between 2 4x4s. And the size of it is 6 by 8. And all it's going to say is Marty's, and actually it's also, and at the bottom it's going to say featuring Stan's Relish.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
With the hours and the days I'm open.
Okay. Well, that's all I have currently, but thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, Krista. Thank you.
Thanks,
No
Christina. Thanks, Christina. I only see a top row of people up there, so if any other commission members have any questions for the applicant, please speak up.
Commissioner Coles?
I've had Caleb.
Thank you. So thanks for the application. We appreciate it. A couple questions I have. I did see in the notes for the responses that you're going to move the portalet. What's the location that's going to be put in?
Well, actually, I'm gonna work with the health department because I'm gonna work with the health department on their recommendation. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some lattice around, so when you do come out, it'll be a little, you won't look like you're just coming out of a bathroom. And, I've been in contact with this, Lenny, the assistant fire chief already, and he wanted me to, once I call the health department, meet with them, they're gonna have to check the truck and all that. I'm gonna ask them what's the best spot they would like it, and, while they're on site, and that's where I'll put it.
So my comment is this, regardless of and I certainly respect our colleagues on the health department and the fire marshal's office, but we're looking at a safety feature of the lot. If we have cars coming in and out of the area, I just have a little concerned of an errant driver maybe running into that portalet with somebody in it. If there was a way to, I see that it looks like you put concrete blocks between the parking lot and the dining area. Is there some way that you could protect that portalet from traffic in the lot? And I don't know if that's even possible, but that's kind of my concern. God forbid something happens when somebody's in there doing their thing.
What I would do is, I don't know, I'm gonna have to call the company, and even if I come up with some type of barrier, and I understand what you're saying, we just don't want a car running into it, absolutely. But I will come up with something, and once I talk to the portalet and ask them, what's the normal procedure? What do they usually do to protect people from a car not running into it? They might even say to me, maybe there's a block on the far side, put on a 45-degree angle, and that might work. So whatever they recommend, I'll do it, and I will make note of that. That'll be done for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're on the same page with
Oh,
that
absolutely,
concern.
absolutely.
The other one was, we did talk a little bit about, as we're getting into the later hours in the fall and early spring. And I did see your comment in one of the responses to the staff questions about a barrier between the parking lot and the adjacent property. From this, and I have to look at the GIS, and from this, I'm not really exactly sure which side the top face or the bottom face is that residential building. I might be to the bottom of it.
Let me see where the truck. Let me see how I explain it. If I'm looking from the Waterbury Meriden Turnpike, on the right-hand side, that's the house. So what I was thinking, as the fall comes, and I understand what I was thinking of doing, if you guys approve it, would be a friend of mine, I already talked to him, put some type of screening later, like let's say in September, put screening along his fence, because I don't think he's going to let me put it on his, I don't want to put it on his fence. He has a nice fence. So I'll come in 10 feet and I'll put I don't know if 10 feet. It'll be on my property, and I'll put some type of the black screen where the lights won't hit his house.
Let me add this piece of it too, as you're kind of considering what you might want to put between your property and that residential structure. Is as people come in from Meriden Waterbury Road, it is a gravel lot. And in the summer months, it is going to be quite dry out there. So one of my concerns is going to be nuisance dust that's being created from that parking lot. If it's going to carry over from your parking lot over into their residential structure. I don't know how you address that without paving, but we are, it is right next to each other. So if you could
Could I-
kind of maybe
could I-
pontificate about that.
Absolutely. When I bought the lot, I bought off a builder in Southington, and actually, if you go on that lot, it's like cement. It's been down for 3 years now. It's been, and it's like cement. And I actually paid an extra 25,000 for that. Because when I purchased the property, he kept, I forget how much stone Paul Mastriani put down, but when you pull in, nothing's kicking up from that. It's probably, I don't know, quarter-inch stone, but it's compacted, unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I get that, but my concern is maybe in a year or 2 years, that gravel will start to break down with and I hope you are very busy, and it's a warranted concern because that stuff is being broken down because of your success. I don't know, just I think it's something you might want to think about. As time goes on, hopefully you'll be able to. There's the residential, because it really is pretty close to that house.
Well, I'm gonna be, like I said, I'm gonna be from where that is, of course, 10 feet away from that, which I understand. But another thing is, and if I do see things like that happening, my partner with the Relish, they own a construction company. Well, they knock down houses. He has millings. So he said to me, if a problem occurs, like I said, if we see dust kicking up, I could put millings down and they'll roll it on. Because like I said, if that's okay, what it is, I'm going to be there for 7-8 months, and I'll be honest with you, between everything, property, I'm into like 180,000. So I'm serious about this, and I will, like I said, all this brush I'm going to be working on this week, and then I hired a landscaper to bring it down more. I'm going to cut on my property, all these green things you see. And then what we're gonna do is he's gonna come in with like, I don't know, a lawnmower or something and chop everything up. As far, like I said, in the area that I'll be operating in.
And
Okay.
Caleb, this is MJ DeVito. I'm Marty's son. We logged onto WebEx. Sorry we couldn't get the camera to work, but the difference is too. We definitely understand what you're saying. A lot of like stone driveways, right, where you drive through and it collects a dust storm. This is a lot more compacted. So I would imagine that even if there was a dust, any dust kicking up, it'd probably be minimal. If there's a screen or something there, most of it would probably be caught between that and then the greenery that's around. But certainly understand your concern.
Yeah, and if it's pretty solid now, maybe again, if you need to make some modifications in the future, you have those resources to do that. I just wanted to at least mention it with the concerns. But thank you for the explanation of the density of that bituminous covering. I think I've asked my quotient of questions for this one. Thank you, fellas. I do appreciate it, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you
It's
very
been a
much.
pleasure.
Thanks, Caleb. Is there any other questions from the commission members?
Commissioner Wolowski?
Steve, go ahead.
I'm
It's
sorry,
just-
Sue.
Do you have questions as well?
Yeah, I do.
Thanks.
As well.
Okay, let's start with Steve Wawalski. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, just to address what Commissioner Coles was saying, I mean, I don't think people are going to be coming in off the main road at a high rate of speed in order to create dust. Regardless of the compaction, if it's dry enough, we're going to get dust coming up. But I think that the speed and the the vehicle traffic that's going to be coming in and out, I don't see dust as an issue. That's just my personal opinion. I understand why you brought it up, but I don't see that as a big issue. Once you make that turn, if you're familiar with the road at that point, you're virtually crawling to get in there. And I don't see anyone picking up speed entering the parking lot knowing there's a food truck in there. So that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Teresa, did you have a question?
Yes, I did, sir. Yes, this is Commissioner Albanese. I do have a few questions. Just one basically related to the upland review area. And I don't know if I don't see where that upland review area, that 50-foot limit is on on the wetlands, Rob. So I'm just curious if staff is okay with the tree line where their limit of disturbance is 65 foot based on their responses from the tree line. I don't know where the upland review area is as far as in relationship to the plan. So as long as everybody's okay with what's going on with any particular tree removal or vegetation removal, and it's outside of the upland review area, I'm fine with the application the way it's presented.
Rob Phillips,
And-
Director of Planning. Yeah, just real quick, obviously they'll have to go through a zoning permit process after subsequent to any approval, assuming that's given. And the wetlands, the environmental planner, assistant planner is also, reviewed this plan as well too, and we'll make sure that things are compliant.
Great, thank you. And this is Commissioner Albanese again. I do have one more question. Is all trash and debris or the trash from the day, is that going to be removed on a daily basis? Like every day when the truck is removed, the trash is going to be removed as well? There'll be no trash remaining?
Absolutely. It'll be moved daily. When I leave, everything will be picked up, and that's very important. No, it will, like I said, daily it'll be removed. Nothing will be left on the lot.
Great. Well, good luck to you. This is a great opportunity and something I think a lot of folks are excited about as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks, Teresa. Any other members of the commission have any questions for the applicant?
Yep, I do. Peter.
Go ahead, Peter.
So, Mr. DeVito, what's unlike a restaurant where you would have designated parking and a designated parking flow, this does not. So if you're there by yourself and on an open lot, people kind of tend to park wherever they park. And if you're successful, that could create quite the issue with people in the lot and then exit and entering Meriden Rosenberry Road, which is not a, quiet street. So I'm wondering if you're thinking about showing people where they need to park to, kind of minimize kind of a free-for-all over there.
Absolutely, Peter. What I plan on doing is, in the plan, I actually had 13 parking spaces, but of course, I brought it down to 10. And what I'm gonna do is get some type of stoppers, okay? I think it's either gonna be 4x4s, or there's a friend of mine, he has at the lumber yard. And what they are is they're about 8 feet. And what I'm gonna do is drill 2 holes. I'm gonna put 18-inch rebar, so they won't budge. And what I'm gonna do also is put like some type of pole where you could see this is where you park, 2, 3, and it'll be spread out. And I'll be honest with you, if I see somebody flying in the wrong way or whatever, I will explain the first time, and they'll see where the spaces are. That's why I want to make it noticeable where, not with just a little thing, maybe put a tennis or something where they could see. And they're, Peter, they're going to be parked. There'll be enough room to open the doors. See, I'm thinking I don't want nobody hitting any doors or,
Right.
So that's what I actually figured out. I think it's a 10, actually I'm going to give 10 feet where normally I think a parking space is, if I'm not mistaken, 7 to 9 feet. So I want to give that extra 10 feet so they could pull in, but they're going to be where I don't know if they're 4x4s or the kid was telling me, but they'll see it and they'll be separated and there'll be 10 of them.
Yes. Okay. Are you planning to operate the truck by yourself? Do you have help? How many people are going to physically be there?
I'm actually going to be there, and my niece that's going to college, she needs a job. So she'll be with me. I don't know, but no, honestly, I'll be there from open to closed. I just don't know any way else.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering because, under the proverbial stuff happens, to have more than one person, I think, is advantageous. particularly from a security standpoint from yourself, that if you need to leave the truck for whatever reason, then that leaves the truck
Absolutely.
subject to whatever in today's day and age. So
Yes.
to have more than one person, I think, is a better deal.
Absolutely. And right now, like I said, I have Jillian, my niece, and her best friend who's going to Columbia University, and everybody wants jobs. So I could deal with college kids. Adults, I have, employees, I should say. So there's like
Okay.
three of them. There's Jillian, Viola, and there's one more of their friends. So
Yeah. Okay. I was just more concerned from a I don't want to say crowd management because that kind of overstates it, but just from a security standpoint and making sure everything's there, having more than one person, I think is a better operating model, and certainly would make me feel better about it.
absolutely. And I thank you for that.
All right. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Any other questions for the applicant from members of the commission? Seeing none. Rob, can you clarify for me, does this abut a residential zone?
Well, it butts a residential use. I'd have to double check on the zones.
It looks like the line is somewhere in that area. Could you check on that while I
Sure.
just go through a couple questions? Martin, thanks for coming out tonight. I'd appreciate it. So let me just make sure I understand the sequence of events here. On sometime prior to February 9th, you made an application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for use of this site for a food truck. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm looking at the approval was granted to you on February 9th, 2021 by Southington ZBA, correct?
Yes.
So I'm kind of wondering why you're here, and I'm going to suspect that what your thought is that you want to make this, rather than a yearly thing, that you want to make it a little bit more permanent.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's how you end up in front of us.
Yes. I was told that,
Go ahead.
that I
Sorry.
had to come before you guys, and so that leads me here. Yes.
Okay. So just by way of explanation, ZBA is a body that's there to provide relief in the instance of a hardship that's proven, which it looks like you provided, and again, it was approved in early February of this year for applicants such as yourself. And the reason I asked Rob to look up whether this abuts a residential zone, because the property is located in a B zone, a business zone, which is guided by Section 4 of our regulations. And I'm just looking at, so we're pretty close, right? We're one lot away. So I'm looking at our zoning regulation 4-00.3. Are you familiar with that?
No, we're not, sir.
No.
Okay. I'm getting back. I'll tell you where I'm going here is that I want to follow up on Caleb's line of questioning with the barrier to block any lights, headlights, and so on with that property to the west. So that property that Rob has shown on the screen right now, just to the left of where your property is. And in addition, there's residential use properties anyways to the rear of your lot, if I looked at it correctly when I was out there earlier today.
Yeah, the condos, yes.
Right, and the vegetation of the picture that Rob threw up there is not as thick today as it is showing in that picture. So along the lines of what Caleb was asking and what our zoning regulations require is that if you have a property located in a business zone like you do, then you would be subject to the provisions of Section 4 of our zoning regulations under 4-003 and 4-004. You're required to provide, just in synopsis, blocking any lights, headlights from cars, or anything like that from any adjoining properties.
Well, what I was gonna do, Bob, too, where the tables are, I am gonna put a fence on the back end of it, so people coming in, that fence should, where the tables are, should block any light that is gonna go through, towards the condos. Because, you know, I gotta enclose, when I say enclose it, the front's staying open, but both sides, even on the right-hand side, my neighbor, I'm gonna put one more section, so that come in with one, so that should deter any lights. Like when he pulls in his driveway, and, you know, his driveway is on the right, along the right-hand side. So then I'd figure and put the felt later in the year from where his fence is clear on the right side. So there should be no lights there won't be no lights hitting on his property. In the back end, them condos, towards the condos, I should say, the fence would block that, because like I said, I got to enclose the seating area also on 3 sides.
Right. So when I was out there earlier today and I drove in the back and the rear of that lot, and I'm looking at that property just to the right, which is showing up as 2172 on the map that Rob has up on the screen.
Okay.
You're literally looking into the backyard of that residence. I mean, they have picnic areas out there. They have that, and just for some history, Martin, so you understand a couple of things I'm going to mention. One is that any approval that we give goes with the property, not with the person. So if we approve anything here, and you turn around and sell that tomorrow, or in a year, or in 10 years, or 20 years, whatever approval we give goes with that property. So we have to look at it from that perspective. The second thing is just a sort of a lesson that I learned from a couple of years ago when we made an approval on the expanded drive-through on the Dairy Queen up the street on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike, that we didn't provide that they have lighting barriers set up prior to them constructing that. And what we ended up with was the person whose property was right in the back there had a problem because she had headlights shining on her property for about 6 months while they were constructing that drive-through. And I thought that wasn't fair to her. And I don't think it was the intent of what we had. So I'm just trying to be careful to make sure that any approval that we may give here is sensitive to your adjoining or adjacent property owners on all 3 sides, if you will.
I'm very considerate of, like I said, and as a matter of fact, I just seen the neighbor the other day, and I will, like I said, with that fence, and he won't have no problems. Or if he says to me, geez, could you put one more section? I'll work, but I won't, I'll make sure that he won't be bothered by the lights. I could guarantee you that. I'm a good neighbor.
And I think that's what I'm talking about is what informed question number 8 that I think Commissioner Volpe spoke to earlier, or maybe it was Caleb who mentioned it, about the fencing and vegetated screening. Because originally, Martin, this was set up as an administrative review, which would have meant it wouldn't have come to the board. It would have been something that was done by the planning department, and they would have looked at that and said, these are the guidelines. This is what you have to do, going back to section 4 of our regulations, and worked with you on making sure that you met all those requirements. So that's kind of where I am. And I'm just kind of thinking that on some level, maybe based on what you're trying to do, maybe you're better off just going the ZBA route instead of the P&Z route. I mean, it's your prerogative.
Can you just elaborate on what the difference would be between that route?
So the ZBA route is one that's more of a temporary thing. So that would, as the approval was given to y'all back in February, that was something that I think that they authorized you to do for 2021.
Okay.
Whereas this approval by planning and zoning becomes a little bit more of a permanent thing. So as I said, it goes with the property. So, you can sell that tomorrow, and if we give an approval for some type of a food truck, someone else can come in there and do it who maybe isn't as considerate as you are to the neighbors. So we got to make sure that we cover those bases. So in the event that that happens, and I don't think you're going to do that anytime in the near future, but you could do that 20 years from now. And I don't want that person who's on the west side, or if they develop other housing around that area, to be inconvenienced by any lack of consideration to the person you might sell it to.
And that's a fair, certainly understand that point. You know, obviously this is, you know, we've had family businesses in Waterbury for several years, and that's the plan here to continue, you know, a longstanding family business. As my dad said, I mean, there's no worse publicity for a business than to have your neighbors hate you, right? So, you know, we want to do this the right way. We'll put in what's necessary to block the lighting, and if the neighbors, you know, have any further comments, you know, we certainly won't turn our back to that.
Yeah, and again, going back to what I said, it goes with the property. So would you have a problem if we put a stipulation on our approval that talk to those requirements as outlined in our regs?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that? If you
I'm just wondering if you'd have a problem if we put stipulations on the approval which outline the requirements for buffering and site blocking of lighting and that type of stuff on the approval that we may act on in a minute or two.
And so this, what you would be saying is where the screening, I'd put the screening, I'd put the fence, of course, and like I have in the plan, and
just to be clear, obviously we haven't looked at the regulation or you know, had time to analyze that, but I guess in a high level analysis, you know, is it something, what are the requirements there? Is it, to my dad's point, a requirement to make sure that each element is met in terms of, you know, there's not any light inhibiting on neighbors' properties, or is it more specific to the effect of, you know, you have to put on an 8-inch, you know, concrete wall, or an 8-foot concrete wall surrounding the property? I just want to understand what the specific requirements or how that would impact it.
Well, with regards to 4-003, it talks about landscape screening not less than 20 feet wide, planted to a mixture of evergreen and deciduous trees and shrubs, unless waived by the commission, which we could do. We can make that a little bit thinner. The landscape border shall provide a year-round effect through which the developed site is obscured from view from a budding residential property. Appropriate evergreen species and so on. It talks about along all parking areas and drives, the border shall be designated to screen these facilities from view and to prevent automobile headlights from causing a nuisance to adjoining residences. Landscape border for parking areas and drive screening should not be counted towards landscape area in section 12-02.5. Fencing shall be required for landscaping and grading, cannot provide the required screening due to topography. So in other words, if you can't plant trees, you have to put a fence up there, a minimum of 4 feet high when measured from top to the adjacent grade, and shall be made of wood. All trees and fences shall be maintained at a height of not more than 3 feet within the sight distance of the triangle of all street and driveway intersections. I mean, it's pretty specific about what they're looking for. Light-proof fencing constructed of wood shall be installed in addition to trees to prevent automobile headlights from causing a nuisance to adjoining residents. And then it goes on to say, and this is sort of the subjective thing, the commission may, for good cause shown, approve the use of materials other than wood after an application for a different material is submitted.
I mean,
I've got it up on the screen right now.
You know, I see it, but you know what's happened. I mean, like I said, I know with the fence, everything I proposed, the lights won't affect. And I mean, financially, I'm into this almost 180,000. I just bought a truck. I mean, you know, I need to get going because it isn't like a restaurant where I got all year round. I'm only going 7 months, and I understand what you're saying, believe me. But if I have to do landscaping, I mean, it's like I said, I thought like with this, you know, putting the screen, and I understand with the neighbor. I'm a great neighbor, and I'm sure you hear that all the time. But like I said, I mean, financially, I mean, you know, I've been into, like I said, you know, I'm close to 180,000.
Yeah, I get that, Martin, and I appreciate that, and I have no doubt that you are a great neighbor. I wish you were my neighbor, perhaps, but But I'm just wondering if you're better off going the ZBA route than coming through planning and zoning, given that the requirements that we are required to adhere to are outlined up there. And, you know, we do have some wiggle room, granted, but I'm just wondering, you know, if you're better off just going to ZBA, accepting the approval that they already gave you on February of this year, going with that and coming back next year and giving and applying again, which I'm sure you, well, I can't guarantee it, but I'm guessing that you probably would get again.
So,
This is Commissioner Volpe here.
like,
I'm sorry, go ahead,
Commissioner
Mr.
Volpe, go
DeVito.
ahead. No, please go ahead, Ms. Volpe.
Apologies. I just wanted to kind of break it down for Mr. DeVito so that there isn't a confusion here. I do agree with Chair Hammersley in that I do think that some of what you're looking for at the present moment, just starting off this business, you already have been approved for in February. Because our zoning regulations do not currently contain anything that specifically adheres to food trucks on private property or otherwise, it's a little difficult for us to take your specific application because it abuts a residence, right? So what we're kind of trying to say to you is, would you rather come back in a year, operate your business with the approval that you got with ZBA, and then discuss with us possible fencing options, et cetera? Because it seems at this point that that might be a little anxiety inducing, right? Because there are certain regulations that we must follow for this specific property. And I just wanted to kind of explain it like that so that it's understood.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Christina. And just to add to what Christina just said, later on in our agenda, you'll see that one of the things we're going to do later on tonight is establish a food truck subcommittee, because food trucks have been a topic that's come before this group more than once in the 6 years that I've been here, 5 years that I've been here. And I think that we need to look at our regulations to see whether it's a situation that warrants an actual regulation that guides food trucks in our town.
You know what, but here, Mr. Hemsley, this is what I'm thinking. And again, I was watching the last meeting and I understand you guys, you know, the board with the food trucks. And I'll be honest with you, I said to my son, maybe they should do what I do, spend 125. If you want a food truck, buy the property. You have to own the property to have a food truck. Because if somebody's going to invest that much money into it, right, they're going to make it work. And you're going to get the good trucks, and you're going to do away with the good trucks because their interest, their financial interest is in that.
Right.
Commissioner Volpe here again, Mr. DeVito. I think, yes, I totally agree with you. And I think you have gone down a really tremendous path with this. It is exciting. I want to try the relish. But the problem is that with this specific situation is that because it is a private property within that business zone, we have to adhere to the business zone regulation that came with the property. That's what we're trying to illustrate, is that if you go the ZBA route, you can go ahead and start that business. And then if it is something that you do want to have year after year, which I'm thinking that it's gonna happen because it's a hit, then you might want to come back and see us about putting up that fence and we may even have new regulations for you at that point, is kind of what we're trying to say. So at this point, it's a private property, so it's in that business zone. So we just have to apply the regulations as we see it to your property. That's what.
Thanks, Christine. And Rob, you want to add to that, or?
No, I have a question. I'm actually a little confused about what the intention is as far as the ZBA route. I mean, right now the ZBA is granted the location as an approval. Now, normally the ZBA handles these food trucks. They're usually associated with a one-off event or some other kind of event, or a couple of weekends, special event, things of that nature is usually how it's done. When there's a food truck that wants to locate permanently on a site plan or on a specific site, then that's something that the Planning and Zoning Commission would get involved with. But in this case, this is kind of like in the gray area in between. So I just want to be clear that what the intention is as far as honoring the ZBA or going the ZBA route. I'm just a little confused.
Yeah, so the ZBA approval, item number 2, talks about it being renewable every year unless there's a complaint or an enforcement issue through the zoning department. So I'm kind of thinking, Mr. DeVito, that you kind of have what you want already.
Yes, I understand. I agree with you guys. that'll be fine. That's fine. And I'll be honest with you, I probably end up with the time, you know, I might be planting trees and I don't even know I'm gonna be planting trees. Yeah, I'm just nuts. If I have time on my hands, but I understand. That'd be great. So I agree with everyone.
So procedurally, Rob, if we act on this, and let's just say for the sake of the conversation that we don't approve it, or we approve it with stipulations, and the applicant decides that he doesn't like the stipulations, or that he doesn't like the fact that the way that we approved it, does he still have the ZBA approval in hand that he can work with, or does that take that off the table?
No, he still has the ZBA approval for the location of the food truck. I think the best way to kind of look at this is if the commission feels as though the ZBA, and now again, a reminder, the regulations, the planning and zoning regulations that you create, modify, and enforce allows for certain uses to be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals through special exception. And that's what that is. There was a misstatement earlier, I think, by the applicant about calling it a variance. It wasn't a variance. It was a special exception for food trucks. So you've granted the ZBA the authority and the ability to handle those. So I think if you feel as though the ZBA has acted and can act in that capacity, and you don't have any reservations as to their role in this, then I suppose the applicant could simply just withdraw the application, and we could just let the ZBA handle it as part of your policy decision.
Well, Martin, before you answer that question, I think that's a question that we need you to answer, and that's completely up to you. I just want to ask if any other commission members have any thoughts that they want to put out there on this. And then Martin, I'm going to ask you whether you want to withdraw this or whether you want to move forward. So, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Christina hit it on the head by saying we would be treating, and we're obligated to treat this business like it's a brick and mortar business, not a temporary one. And because of that, there are certain things that we're obligated to do that may be a burden to the applicant at this particular point in time. So why do that? You may do it, he may do it anyway because he's a good guy and good neighbor, would put up fencing and wants the place to look nice, and may do those things in his own time, such that when it comes around next year, everything's cool. So, but we're obligated, as Chairman Hamley said, and Christina so eloquently too, to say, hey, look, we got to look at you like you're a building, and if you're a building, you got to do X, Y, and Z, letter of the law, or else you're in trouble. So why do that for 6 months of the year when it's a temporary thing anyways? Work your way up to it.
Yeah.
So I think for us and for the applicant, I think that would be the better part of valor at this particular time, if everybody else agrees with that.
Okay, Teresa, I see your hand is up, or it appears your hand is up, or no? Okay. I thought that's what that signal was over on the left. Commissioner Locks and then
Commissioner Gork? Oh, okay.
Sorry. And then Jeff.
Yes,
I'll wait.
and this is exactly why we brought it to the Board of Zoning and Appeals. So they'll go through the first year, and if there are issues, those issues will be brought up. And if they don't follow those issues, that maybe it's headlights, maybe it's the way the parking is, or what have you. And at that point, it will be addressed. So by giving it to the Board of Zoning and Appeals, we have more control. So I just feel that it should be left at the Board of Zoning and Appeals.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Commissioner Salko, I saw you waving your arms. And then Jeff Gore, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do agree with Susan and Christina and basically what Peter said. And also, I was going to make the exact same comment that Rob had mentioned is, why don't we just ask the applicant if he wants to withdraw this and leave it as it is with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I think that's probably the better approach right now.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thanks. Commissioner Bork?
This is Commissioner Warwick. I guess I'm stuck on looking at the ZBA stipulations. Number 3 is the plan is not part of the approval. The approval is for location only. Is that something because that we still have to vote on because we have to vote on the plan? They just approved the location because it's a special exception. So I'm wondering if we still have to do something.
Phillips, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to look back at the ZBA approval, but I can, if we feel as though they need to go back and just clarify that, we can do that. Otherwise, we could simply ask for clarification, or I'd have to circle back with Dave LaValle, who staffs ZBA. So I don't think at this point in time, I don't think you need to worry about that. We could guide the applicant accordingly.
I think, Jeff, if I can elaborate on what Rob just said, I think that's why it was suggested that this be an administrative approval. And, we had a lengthy discussion and we made a decision to hold a hearing on it, which is what we're doing right now. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's Commissioner Gork again. Yeah, that does. And just the other thing, I'm just looking at the ZBA approval, just hours of operation and the time, the months are going to be on site. None of that was listed. So, but if that can all be cleared up administratively and we could just withdraw this, then I'm on board with everybody else as well. So.
Okay, Christina Volpe, I saw that you had your hand up.
Yes, this is Commissioner Volpe. I was just going to say that I agree with everyone also that it's, it seems like if it's temporary per the ZBA approval, right? And then pending whatever occurrences happen with our regulations in the next year, or if the owner wants to have something more permanent there, then I would say that we could review the site plan. But at this point, I think we're all golden like Marty's relish.
I slide back into it every once in a while, Christina. I can't help myself. So Martin, the question really comes down to you. It's up to you on whether you want to pull this application or whether you want to move forward with it.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hammersley. This is MJ, Marty's son. I just kind of want to get some clarification in terms of what that would mean in terms if we pulled the application. So we've already received the zoning board approval for the variance. So what's the process for getting the site plan approved or the plans approved, since it wasn't?
You wouldn't really have a site plan approval. What you would do is you would work with the planning department to talk to them about how that site would be laid out. And they would work with you to make sure you get what you want while being sensitive to the needs of the rest of the people around you, I guess is.
Yeah, Rob Phillips again. You can just contact our office and Dave LaValle or myself, and we'll work with you on what needs to be done. No matter what, there's still a zoning permit that's necessary for not just the signage, but the actual, for the basically the approval. Whether it's ZBA or PZC, it still requires a zoning permit. So we'll work with you on that.
All right, and I know the plans look like I did when I was half sleeping, and I also submit, I think, Rob, I gave you the previous plans that the plans were approved for a building or something, but they expired or whatever. So that's where I got my 10 feet. I worked off that. I don't want you to think I just made something up, if that has any sense to it.
Okay. So Martin, what's your pleasure on this? You want to move forward or you want to pull the application?
If I pull the application, I got to pull I'll call it.
Yeah, if you move forward, the commission's going to be forced to have to condition the approval with meeting the regulations.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I like the suggestions, and I'm gonna pull that.
Okay, so the applicants decided to pull it. Rob, quick question for you, and if the answer is no, then the answer is no. But just a thought. I know he laid out a fee to make this application. Is there any way to refund him that?
I honestly, usually the fees associated with advertising costs, and we haven't had any advertising costs for a full year. So it's something I can look into. Yeah.
So Martin, when you talk to Rob and his staff, just be aware of that. I think just in sensitivity to being a small business person, we appreciate that you've decided to do some business in our town. I think that, Rob, anything you can do to refund, it's a small fee. I think it's $355. Anything you can do to help him out with there, even if it's a partial one. I think, personally myself, I would appreciate it. I'm sure that Mr. DeVito would appreciate that as well.
Yeah, we'll look into it. The one thing I can't waive is the state fee, unfortunately. That's $60.
No, that's whatever you guys could do, and I appreciate it. And I wasn't gonna throw this up, but for my character, one of my good customers, Tony D'Onofrio, was always in my restaurant, so I think he could vouch for me. He's a nice guy. He makes nice limoncello.
But you must have good food if Tony eats where you are then.
Son, you want to laugh when I see Tony down to zoning and planning. You know what he said to me? Are you going to have rack of lamb? Are you going to have them lamb chops? He wants me to come over to the house and cook them for him. They are good. And the name of the relish is Stan's, and I'm actually in is it Tops Market in Southington?
Okay. We'll look for that,
appreciate
and I'll make sure that I make a visit out there at least once. Once you guys get set up, I'm looking forward to enjoying your cook. So
I'll make you proud, I promise.
I already am, Mr. DeVito. I appreciate you being here tonight, and I'm happy that we could work this out for you.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thanks for coming.
Thank
So,
you.
Rob, do we need to take any action to get that off the agenda, or just this is enough? Okay, so let's move on to item 7C, Central Connecticut Resource Recovery LLC site plan modification application to reduce a portion of landscape buffer from 50 feet to 15 feet. Property located at 65 Triano Drive, parcel size 36.84 acres in an I2 zone, SPR 1687.1. Do we have the applicant present?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. For the record, my name is Stephen Judas with the Office of Harry Cole & Son at 876 South Main Street in Plantsville. I'm here tonight with Kurt Hollis from HQ, or rather Central Connecticut Resource Recovery LLC, regarding property located at 65 Triano Drive. As mentioned, this is in a 36-acre parcel in an I2 zone. This site came before the Commission a few years back for site plan approval for a recycling facility. And as part of that application and approval, there was material storage proposed to be stored on a portion of the property. We were required to maintain a 50-foot buffer at that time along the property line. And we're requesting a modification of that buffer and proposing a 15-foot buffer with a 4-foot berm to be landscaped with hardwoods and evergreens and so on. The site is rather expansive, but it's off a Lazy Lane. This property line runs parallel to Lazy Lane, but it's approximately 500 feet back away from any residential houses or anything along Lazy Lane. I can share a map, an overall map, or Rob, I don't know if you have anything that you can put up.
Hey, Steve, good to see you again. We'd like to ask the applicant to, it has been a while. We asked the applicant to try to put that stuff up themselves. Rob's got other things going on, so I don't want him to be distracted. So if you're comfortable doing that, can you do it for us?
I'm going to give it a shot if you guys bear with me. I'm not so good at this stuff either, so.
Mine's going very, very slow anyway.
Baptism by fire, Steve, I guess.
It's by fire every single time I do this. So every commission uses a different app, and I try. Let's see. Okay. So can you see this plan here?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the plan that we submitted for the modification. And if you follow my pointer here, the property line is right along here. And the 50-foot buffer was this line over here. And we're proposing to pull this tree line back and plant a 4-foot berm along this area. Some of it would be used with natural, and some of it would be new planted material. I'm going to show another plan that shows you approximately where this is located on the site. This is the original set that was approved back, let me see, I think, let's say 2016 or 15, I think this was approved. If we look over here at the key map, this is Lazy Lane running in this location, and this is Triano Drive here. The site is accessed through a driveway, and most of the facility is located at this location, but there are some internal driveways that run to different recycling areas, and the property line that we're referring to is this property line right in here. Approximately 600 feet of this property line is where we're proposing to modify that buffer. As you can see, this parcel here in front of us, the houses there are houses located along Lazy Lane, but they're very far away. And then these are industrial sites. This is SRS, if you guys are familiar with SRS, that's located on Lazy Lane for a point. And I'm gonna just scroll through and show you the overall survey map. We're talking about this area in here where we have wood recycling. We do stumps and chips and recycling of wood products in this location. And this is the property line that we're referring to or proposing to modify the buffer. I can scroll in and show you the original layout in that area. That's in this area right here. There's an access drive that comes through. I'm sorry, there's an access comes in through this area.
Hold on, Steve.
Hold on.
If anyone is not talking, could mute their microphones, please.
Whoever Jim is, I don't know if it's Jim Jones, I just muted you. If you could just stay muted, please.
Go ahead, Steve, sorry.
No problem. This location is accessed through a driveway that comes up along this water easement, and then it crosses gas CLMP easement, and then comes in along this property line. It's this area here we're proposing to modify the buffer. This operation has just exploded, and Kurt's running out of room, and he needs to use as much of this space as he possibly can, just to deal with the demand that they're working with right now. So I'm going to go back to the original plan here. It's a very wooded site, but there are pockets of the site where we have certain recycling activities going on, and this is the one that we need some more space on.
Okay.
Any questions for me or Kurt at the moment? I know we usually don't do these together, but we're both right here, so we can.
Okay, I'll open it up in a second, Steve, just for purposes of identifying the zoning regulation we're talking about is 5-00.3 in our regulations. And I'm just going to point out, Steve, as you probably know, that this approval would require a 2/3 vote by the commission.
Okay.
Right. So with that, if there are any questions for members of the commission to the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Kurt.
Commissioner Salko, right?
Just a question. It's my understanding this buffer has already been taken down.
Yes, sir.
And then you've got a restoration bond with the town to put it back the way it was.
Yes, sir.
So his business has grown, but why was it taken down in the first place? That's my question.
I think it was just a misstep during the process. So when we were out there, it's just very wooded. It wasn't clear. I think that the property line was as close as they thought they had more room than they did, I guess is what I would say. We did submit a restoration plan for this area, complete, and I believe that the staff came up with a bond to restore it. So if this measure fails, then we would go back to that plan.
That was my question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Any other questions from members of the commission?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Albanese, alternate Commissioner Albanese. I have a quick question regarding the piles, the storage piles that are out there. What are the height of those piles?
They can vary.
What's the ultimate limit of the height of those piles that you're trying to achieve?
I think what Kurt was saying is that the DEP regulates his piles to be no more than 20 feet high.
And the vegetation that you're proposing for the 15 feet, what's the height requirement? What's the proposed height that you're putting in there?
So Kurt picked out three different types of trees with three different heights.
Yes.
They will range anywhere from 6 feet to, I guess, 60 and when fully mature. So they will
Right,
range
right.
very high.
Okay, do you have an aerial of this area so we can see where the voids are as far as from the residential areas to this area, like some sort of a Google map maybe, or?
I can give it a shot if you want to give me a second.
I have,
Sure you can.
if you'd like, I can share. I have the GIS open to that area.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, do I need to stop sharing this, Rob?
I think I might be able to override.
We'll take over.
Let's see. 72 GIS. There we go. Does everybody see that?
It's coming up.
Is it up?
It's
Yes, it
up,
is.
Rob, but I don't know if you can zoom out a little bit maybe on that image.
What's that?
Can you zoom out on that image a little bit?
Sure.
Just because.
Yeah, that's a good scale, I think, right?
Yeah, you can see Lazy Lane isn't even in the picture yet. This is the clearing to the south you see is an industrial. Okay, where are we? I can't point to this image. Rob will have to point to it.
You can see my cursor. Here's Lazy Lane.
So the buffer, I think, is that straight line right in the middle of the property. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, sir. Where Rob's pointing right now, it's that line.
That's what you're talking
Right.
about.
It's only about 600 feet of it. It's not the whole line.
Okay.
Okay, that
Right, so-
looks good. I mean, that's what I was interested in is basically how densely wooded it is. And I'm sure it's just hardwoods and conifers, but what you're proposing are conifers, so that's going to give some more of a visual buffer, which even if there were voids in this 300, 400, 500 feet of depth of woods, it wouldn't matter. So I appreciate pulling that up, and I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob.
Sure.
Any other
Mr. Chair.
questions? Yep, go ahead.
Steve, it's Peter. So Steve, I didn't follow a little bit. So it was 50, you're asking for 15, but then you said a berm. And so is it a line of 15-foot trees and then a berm, or are the trees on top of the berm? I didn't quite understand what you were doing.
So we're proposing both. We're proposing the taller trees along the property line and then a berm into the property about 10 feet in, 4
Okay.
feet wide by 4 feet high with then plants, those smaller plants on top of the berm.
Okay, so you've got your larger trees along the line, and then behind that, a 4-foot berm with trees on top of that.
Yes, sir.
So that's what you're doing. Okay, so it's that, and the reason you're here is, oops, we went too
Well,
far, and that's what we got, right?
I think it is an oops, but before we could submit this plan, we had to come up with a restoration plan and post the bond to
Yeah.
resolve that issue. So the oops it is an oops, and I can't say it's been corrected yet, but at least the money's been in place to correct it if need be.
Gotcha.
And then the next step was to ask if this would be acceptable to the commission. So
Okay. And
again,
so this is just for
it is
60
an
feet?
oops.
Yeah, I get
But
it.
we're trying to cover all the bases and get to where we think the site would be more productive for him.
Yeah, no, I get it. And so this is 60 feet of how long? So how long
About
is it?
600 feet.
So it's 10% of the borderline. The other border remains the same. And so 60 feet of 600, you want to do this thing.
No, I'm sorry. We're proposing to modify the buffer of 600 feet. The
Oh.
property line itself is about 1,300 feet.
Okay, so 600 of 1,300.
Yes. 45%.
Gotcha. And so half that line would look like this.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, the other
Mr.
area is not disturbed. It's just woodland that is not proposed to be disturbed. It's wetland and
Right.
they would just remain as is.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mr.
That's
Chairman,
all,
one
Mr. Chairman.
one additional question.
Okay, Bob.
That area to the south of the plantings where you're gonna put that berm, that's an R25 zone?
I'm not sure if it's R25. It is a residential zone though.
It's a residential zone, so they could in fact be building houses back almost, well, up to that property line, correct?
Within, I think, 25 or 30 feet of it, yeah.
Correct. So you could have the backyards of some houses there. If we do not approve it, you're going to have that kind of material right up to within the property line if we do not, or if we approve this variance, we could have property backyards right up to that open space, if you will, with 20-foot piles of wood chips, et cetera. Is that correct?
That is correct. However, I think you also have a provision for I guess it depends on what type of housing it would be. For residentially, yes, the houses could clear right up to the property line.
Thank you.
If it's an R12 zone, did you say it was R2025, I think?
I thought it was 2025, yeah.
25, okay. Yeah, it would be residentially.
Any other questions for members of the commission? Steve?
This is Ron Yorsky. I'm one of the landowners.
Ron, we have commissioners asking questions, so Commissioner Borowski, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself, Steve. You're muted, it appears.
My question is regarding the berm. You're talking about a 4-by-4-foot berm running the length. Is there anything planted on that berm?
Yes, sir. There are different types of trees planted on the berm, arborvitaes and what was the other one? And firs, Douglas firs.
I think, I don't know if a 4-by-4 berm is sufficient enough to support those trees, but I mean, I would like to see the berm a little bit wider, not necessarily higher, but just wider to support a root structure for those trees.
I'm sure we could make it 10 feet wide if that was more sufficient.
I just think it makes more sense. I think you're trying to plant something on a pedestal, so to speak, and win whatever. I don't think that makes good horticultural sense.
No, not a problem. We can modify that. The 4-by-4 is something we took out of the zoning regulations.
Okay. You all set, Steve, or?
Yes, thank you.
Any other members of the commission have any questions? Steve, any odors that are being emitted from this pile of wood chips out there?
I'm sorry, what was the question? Any what?
Any odors, any type of noxious smells or anything like that?
No, I was out there last week and I didn't smell anything, so I would say no.
Is there any noise that's created while they're chipping up that wood out in that area?
Yeah, there's a machine that chips up the stumps that runs, during business hours that, makes some noise.
Any site lighting out there?
No, sir.
There's nothing, just trucks perhaps?
Yep.
Put lights on occasionally? The property owner just on the other side of that boundary, have you all reached out and had a conversation with them to sort of gauge what their thoughts are as 15 from 50 is a pretty substantial reduction. And have you had any conversations with that property owner to gauge what their thoughts might be?
I have not. I think that I don't know if her and the property owner have had any discussions on it or not. But I think Rob might have spoken to the property owner.
Kurt, have you had any conversations with the property owner on the other side there?
I'd spoken to the property owner of in theory of purchasing it in the future to if they wanted to sell it so that we can expand the property. So just to go on the evergreen. So if you came out to the site and you looked at that overhead view, a lot of that area was infested with vines, and so some of that overhead view tree cover is really vine cover. So by planting these evergreens, you're going to by far get more blockage than if you have the deciduous species that were there. So in this area, there are no evergreens. There were no evergreens. So by implementing this plan, you're going to create a much denser blockage of our facility to the neighboring property, which net both of us win. If they want blockage, they're going to have massive blockage, and then B, we get more space. If we restore it back to its natural habitat, there's all kind of gaps. So if you stand on my property and you could see the highway 2,500 feet away through the woods in the winter, with this evergreen buffer, you're never going to see us. So the smallest plant that's planted here will get to the 20-foot height, plus you got the berm. You'll never see our operation in about 7 years. If you plant it back to deciduous species, as the leaves drop in November, you got November, December, January, February, March, April, where you're going to see right through. 50 feet is not a thick buffer. This by far does better justice for both of us. It allows us to operate and allows that property to never see us in 5 years. We'll never see us once this berm matures.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Salka, go ahead.
The bottom line is that if we do not approve this variance, they still have to put in that 600 feet of plantings that were shown here. Is that correct?
Yes, they're all deciduous species. So that's a replant of what was existing there, being oak, maple, ash, and I think there was an elm on the property. So they'll go back, and deciduous species drop their leaves, their stalks, and through the winter, like I said, if you stood on our property, you could see from one end to the other out to the highway. And so as far as a screen, if the goal here is to screen residential property from an industrial property, an evergreen screen by far does better for screening purpose than a deciduous screen. So we've posted a bond. I've secured the plants. We can replant it to a deciduous berm, but that's not doing justice to the property owner to the side of us, because they're going to see through it. It'll never block like an evergreen. This plan will block like an evergreen. So if you come down Triangle Drive, there's a 15-foot buffer where they've planted spruce trees and arborvitaes, and you can't see anymore. You know what I mean? So this is going to do the same, being it's going to give a greater buffer than the natural buffer.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I don't understand where the applicant is coming from. The only thing I see is he's going to plant this buffer, whether he plants it 15 feet from the property line or 50 feet from the property line. It would seem to me that if it's 50 feet back, then the abutting property owner on the south and the residential is going to be further away from whatever piles of wood chips, et cetera, are from the property line. I guess I just didn't understand the argument or the alternative.
Let me expand upon that if I can, Bob, is that if you look at the regulation, it actually talks about providing a year-round effect through which the developed site cannot be seen, essentially. So whatever the species that's required in order for that to occur is what we're required to put in there under the current regulation. So droppage of foliage is not something that should open up that sight line between your property in the I1 zone, right, to the I2 zone, to the abutting residential zones just to the south there. That's what the regulation says. It talks about the height and size and appropriate species and evergreens and all that type of stuff. So So, go ahead, Steve.
Well, I just wanted to point out that generally, I agree with you. When you're planting a buffer for this regulation, you would plant it with something that was more light proof. However, this plan and most plans, when there's existing vegetation, we just maintain the existing vegetation as that 50-foot buffer. So this plan was approved using the existing vegetation as a 50-foot buffer. And I think Kurt's point is that what was there was full of vines and it was mostly deciduous trees, so that didn't provide a light, the buffer that I think probably the neighbor wanted or Kurt wanted, and so this is a smaller buffer proposal, but it's a better buffer than what was originally approved. So if I could back up, the landscaping plan, there's two separate plans. We submitted a restoration plan for this that replaced the plants that were removed from the site. And that was what was bonded, and that's a separate plan. So the attempt with this plan was to create a thicker berm or a thicker landscape buffer, although not as long or as wide, but thicker, and would achieve that goal better than what was originally on the site.
So Steve, can I ask a question, just a clarification on what you just said? The restoration plan that was dated March 17th with a revision date of March 24th of 2021. What you're saying is that restoration plan provides for a thicker buffer than the originally approved buffer under the application from 2015, 2016?
Okay, it's confusing because there's two plans. There's a restoration plan that was submitted to planning to restore the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah, last month.
Yeah, last month. That plan, that was then a bond was posted for that plan. That plan proposes to replace the trees that were removed, mostly deciduous trees that were removed from the site. It is still probably denser than what was out there originally, but it doesn't have the evergreens or the berm that we're proposing on this plan. This plan proposes a better light-proof barrier in a smaller space, because we know we're taking this berm, we're reducing it from 50 to 15, so we're trying to increase the effectiveness of it. So this plan, we feel, will achieve that better than the other restoration plan or what was existing there previously.
Okay. Soka, are you all set, or you have any questions? You're on mute.
I'm good, thank you.
I was going to say,
I'm
I
going
think I
back
see
and
you
forth
sitting here
here.
good, but any other questions from members of the commission? Thanks, Bob.
Chairman Hammersley, it's Commissioner Gorick.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So by reducing the 15 feet from 50-foot buffer, are the material storage piles or the roadways going to be getting closer to the property line at all, or no?
The storage piles would be closer to the property line, not the roadway.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else before we ask for a motion on this?
Yes, this is Commissioner Albanese again. I'm sorry. I have one more question. Steve, will it be a maintenance plan for restoring plantings that die perhaps, or, on a yearly basis? And how is this going to be monitored? And I guess my other question is arborvitaes. Arborvitaes typically are not deer resistant. Are you going to be installing arborvitaes that are deer resistant?
I'm being told that green giant arborvitaes are deer resistant, and so that those would be what would be planted, and that there would be a maintenance plan to replace anything that dies within the first year or two. Usually it's a year, but if the commission felt more comfortable, we could extend that out.
Right, I'd appreciate if it was extended longer, because sometimes it takes a few years before, typically the conifers are hardy, but I would think it might take a few years, especially if you're installing some on berms. You might have some issues with that, with drainage and possibly, if they're going to be watered. I mean, naturally they should just be taken, but I think if you could extend it, that'd be great.
I think I see our resident landscape artist, Steve Wolowski. Do you have anything to
No, yes, they are deer resistant, and as long as they're watered, I'd recommend planting them in the fall. So,
And Kurt would recommend, if the commission would want it, a 5-year maintenance and replacement if anything died within the 5.
Thanks, Steve. Teresa, you all set?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members of the commission have any questions? Okay, we're looking for a motion on this.
Wait 1 second, Mr. Chair. Rob Phillips, Director of Planning. I have a question for the applicant. Is the plan that's submitted representative of the existing conditions on site? We just have concern, and I mentioned this to the applicant previously, that the area impacted, the area in use is larger than what was originally approved, and there's concern by the wetlands agent that there may be impacts closer or potentially even within the wetland area to the north. So that's why I'm asking this question.
Thanks,
Rob, I'll be honest with you, we did this property line here. I didn't go across the whole site. I can do that. If there's any issues, I can because we're in the process of preparing an as-built plan for the site for CO. So I can incorporate that into that as-built plan.
Yeah, that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Thanks, Rob. Do we have a motion on this application?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Salka.
Mr. Selk, I'll make a motion that we deny SPR 1687.1.
Okay, we have a motion to deny the application from Commissioner Salka. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second Commissioner Salka's motion.
Commissioner Volpe is a second. Any further discussion?
The discussion, Mr. Chairman, is that even if the applicant had said that they're planning on, if we were to approve this application, that they would be moving their site work closer to the property line. So that's one reason that I made the motion to deny the application. The second one is that I think by having the buffer, the 50-foot buffer, to leave it there gives the owner of the property to the south more options. If they want to build homes, then they can put a different buffer in behind the homes that they build there. But it still gives them that 50-foot buffer. So that's the reason for my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Does any other commission members have anything that they want to add to that?
Yes, Commissioner Volpe here.
Go ahead, Christina.
I'll discuss that. I agree with Commissioner Salka in the sense that, the 50-foot buffer is there for a reason. 15 is just, as we mentioned earlier, a bit of a jump for future property owners in the residential zone that should be considered. So I'm going to go ahead with Commissioner Salka on this one and say that we maintain that 50-foot buffer.
Okay. Thanks, Christina. Do we have any other comments or points that commission members would like to make before we call roll on this? Seeing none, again, this is a motion to deny. So a yes vote is to deny, a no vote is to not deny, if that makes sense. Well, Rob, if you can go ahead and call the roll, please.
Sure. Motion to deny in affirmative. Gwark?
Commissioner Gwark? No.
Is that a no?
No. Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Volpe?
Commissioner Volpe, yes.
Commissioner Walowski?
yes.
Commissioner Locks?
Commissioner Locks, no.
Let's see, Secretary Santiago?
Yes.
Vice Chair Salka?
Vice Chair Salka, yes.
Chairman Hammersley?
Hammersley's a no. Motion passes 4-3. Going back to item 7A, Robert and Sherry Bowder, site plan application for
Thank you.
2000. Thanks, Steve. Good to see you, as I said. Again, item 7A, Robert and Sherry Bowder, site plan application for a 2,520 square foot cold storage addition property located at 611 Old Turnpike Road in an I-1 zone, parcel size 2 acres, SPR 1815. Do we have the applicant online with us right now?
Rob Phillips, Director of Planning again. I'll note that I did receive an email from Jim Jones at 7:13 p.m. It doesn't really say anything. I did respond back and asked if he was at the meeting. I thought there was a Jim here that might have been him, but that Jim is no longer here, so I'm not sure what the status is.
Rob, do we need the applicant here to act on this, or is that something not advisable, or?
I mean, I guess you don't need to technically if you're looking at it, from that standpoint. I mean, you have all the application materials in front of you. Obviously, it's a request for an addition on the rear of the building and they did have a response to comments. Has everybody had a chance to review that? It's posted on the town website. I can pull them up if you want.
Well, Rob, let me ask you this before you do that. Just your professional opinion, having been involved with planning and zoning for a while anyways, has the commission ever approved or acted on an application absent the applicant being present?
In the 15 plus, 16 plus, 17 years I've been doing this in multiple towns, I can't remember one, but there may have been one. So, but yes, not anywhere typically.
Okay. And I'm not necessarily one who wants to set that precedent necessarily or cut that path. What's the commission's pleasure? Do we want to table this and hope that they're back for our next meeting on April 20th, or what do we want to do?
You do have plenty of time because the governor does allow an additional 90 days with the executive orders for the applicant for the pandemic. So the time's not an issue.
I will say this, and Rob and I were talking about it earlier today. Our agendas moving forward are going to be quite lengthy, and so I don't know if we want to just clear the deck of this one or not. I have no preference either way, except that, as I said, I don't think that we've ever acted on an application without the applicant being there.
This is Commissioner Volpe here. I'm a little hesitant to do that just because, technology is so difficult for so many of us, and who really knows what happened? His computer could have crashed, phone could have flown out the window. We're living in some crazy times over here. So a little bit of leniency could go a long way. I feel like we should give the applicant another chance. I don't really feel comfortable not speaking to the applicant either.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Yeah, phones flying out the window. Bob Soka, go ahead. What do we got?
That's just my day.
I can't beat that one. I'm sorry.
That's crazy.
But the question I guess I would like to ask the applicant is, they're putting the addition behind the building, and behind that building, there is an awful lot of storage stuff. And I don't see that on the plan. I mean, there's old fuel pumps. There's a digger back there. There's what is he going to do with that if he's putting the addition? Because they're right up to the back of the building. So I agree with Christina, not about the flying telephones, but certainly about being able to ask the applicant some questions of what he's going to do to clean it up back there.
Okay, so is there any objection to tabling this until the 20th?
No.
No objection. Okay. So, Rob, we don't need a motion for that, do we?
No.
Okay. So let's do that and move on to item 8, administrative items. As I mentioned earlier, based on the conversations that I've listened to over the last 5 years, and some of you have been present for some of those, but food trucks have been a longstanding issue with this commission and trying to resolve it, whether we end up developing some regulation that addresses food trucks or whether we decide to do nothing, which is always an option, of course, or something in between those two. I thought it was a good time to maybe create a subcommittee to look at that. I had a conversation with Commissioner Volpe about heading up that subcommittee. She's agreed to do that unless things have changed in a week, Christina. So I'll give you this last option to opt out. But and I've spoken to her about possible membership, Rob Phillips and I, as well as Lou Perillo, the Town Economic Development Director, and I have had conversations about getting people on board to participate in that subcommittee. If there's any members of the commission, of course, that option is open to you all, and I would just kind of direct you to contact Christina. And Christina, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or if anyone else has any thoughts on the matter.
Sure, Commissioner Volpe here real quick. Yeah, I'm really excited as our resident millennial to take on this endeavor. I really think it's time to add something like this to the regulations, and not just for, private property owners, but just a general kind of way to go about it. I'm really hoping that if you have any suggestions of members from our community that should be on this subcommittee, we really want to get a diverse cohort of voices on this. And that includes restaurant owners, right? I don't really want to be exclusionary in some of the more, negative effects of food trucks, right? But other surrounding towns, as many people know, and we've been talking about the articles, have been, enacting some things. And I think it would be great. We do have a great culture here in Southington. We see it kind of reviving post in this weird period that we seem to be in ongoing. So it could really add to the vibe of our town. And I look forward to doing it. So please reach out. I'm going to try to coordinate something for the end of the month for our first meeting.
Okay. Thanks, Christine. Thanks for
Mr. Chair, the other thing I'd add or wonder about is some towns address things like this via ordinance versus regulation. So maybe reaching out to the Southington Ordinance Committee as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that has to be a big part of who we have on our team, is deciding which way to go about this, because we aren't really like the surrounding communities that have enacted other things, right? So we have to kind of take a look at like where we would want food trucks. There's a lot to look into. So, I'm happy to have you, Peter, if you just want to come in or, come by to our first meeting, and I'm hoping to coordinate that with Rob.
I trust you. No, I'm good. It's just from a legal and from a jurisdiction standpoint, I just bring them up for that purpose. I'm a big food truck dude, so I'm with you on it. So it's just who has jurisdiction and the like. That's the only reason I'm suggesting somebody from there to join you. That's all.
Yeah, we got the relish. Now we just need pickled onions, ketchup guy. No,
I think Peter just gave himself a nickname, and that's food truck dude.
I got no issue with. Hey, of all the things I've been called, I'll take that one.
Anything related to food, I'm good with. Okay, any other thoughts on that? Christina, thanks for doing that, and we look forward to hearing what comes back. The only other administrative thing that I can think of, and Rob, you can speak to this a little bit more than I can probably, is we're going to move into a hybrid in-person meeting format probably sometime in May. It's looking at, like, right now, maybe the second meeting of May. And the hybrid format will provide both an in-person option as well as, those people who don't feel comfortable meeting in person, doing so the way that we've been doing it for the last year plus. Interested to see how that works out. I think that Rob polled the commission, and I think by and large people indicated that they were comfortable. There are people, and we're not going to necessarily identify them, but they indicated that they're not quite as comfortable, and that's fine, and I get it. And I encourage them to, if you don't feel comfortable for whatever reason, to join us in this technologically challenged phone flying out car window world that we've been living in for 13 months. So, but Rob, I don't know if you have any other particulars you want to add to that as well.
Yeah. So Jay Baker over in IT, back at the end of the summertime, I believe it was, we were preparing to enter the hybrid meeting phase, which is going to be pretty much a new normal across the state. More towns than not are probably going to have this online aspect for people to, join in and participate in public meetings from the comfort of their home. That can obviously double for staff as well too. So I'll have to refresh, and we'll have to, go over it all again. I will say that If you want to see how it's run, because I'll be tuning in myself. But if you want to see how it's run and how it's conducted, the first town council meeting in May is going to be the guinea pig. So I don't have the date in front of me, but if you check on the schedule, if you want to tune into that first town council meeting, just at least at the beginning to see how it's kind of run, that's going to be exactly the same way we're going to run it as well. And right now we're looking forward to the second meeting in May for planning and zoning. I don't know that ZBA and Conservation Commission will follow right away, but it might be a cascade effect with town council, then us, and then other groups.
Okay, thanks, Rob.
And one other thing, as far as administrative, Jim, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the floodplain filling application for the bridge, the slight changes.
Sure, appreciate it. We went to wetlands and concerning floodplain filling application just to review the impacts along the rail corridor for the extension. And the two areas that we discussed with the commission was the Stone Arch Bridge and the bridge at the end of Aircraft Road by Jensen's for the river crossing. So there was some concerns expressed by the commission. So it took a couple meetings to get by their questions, but they fully supported the floodplain filling application, which is basically going to we're trying to maintain existing grades within the corridor, especially within the floodplain area. And if you're familiar with the Stone Arch Bridge, we're actually elevated well above the floodplain. So there's going to be hardly any impact at that location. And the new pedestrian bridge crossing over the river, it's just a matter of wing walls and abutments, and we're spanning the actual crossing. So we felt that, it's basically no real change that was presented. I forget the date that we presented the wetlands impacts to planning and zoning, but we felt that there's no real change to what was presented. So I thought it'd be a good point just to give an administrative update on that project.
Yeah, and we would just, just like any very minor modifications to a site plan, we would consider them field changes of the sort, and we would take care of it from a staff level. So we just wanted to keep you informed on that.
Yeah, thanks, Jim, and thanks, Rob. Anything else from members of the commission?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Gorick.
Yep, go ahead, Jim.
Going back to the in-person, is there going to be a vaccine requirement to get into the building or anything? If people for some reason chose not to get the vaccine?
No, it's actually a great question you brought up, because you reminded me. I probably should have stated that the current guidelines, and again, those are subject to change, as we all know. Things are changing almost by the week now. But currently, the guidelines are going to be anybody who's meeting in person, commissioners, public, staff, whoever it may be, has to maintain the 6-foot minimum separation distance and must be masked at all times unless they're speaking. So those are the ground rules.
Okay, that's all. That was my only question. I didn't know if I was going to be allowed in there if I chose not to get the vaccine, or I didn't get it yet, or masks and all that, or 3 feet or 6 feet. I don't know what's going on anymore. So
let's put it this way: we've allowed the public in the building since way back in May of last year. So and many other towns aren't even there yet in many ways. There's a lot of appointments only, if anything. So Southington's been pretty open, the best way I can put it, throughout this entire time.
Yeah, I was in the Norwich Town Hall yesterday, and they have a police officer stationed at the front door, and they page whoever you're looking for to come down and meet you at the front door. So I hear exactly what you're saying, Rob, but that's a great question, Jeff. And I think that as we get closer to the time, we'll see whatever guidance is out there, and we'll make sure that we follow that guidance.
Okay, the only other reason I brought that up is if other commission members didn't feel safe with somebody that's not vaccinated. I don't want to put anybody off. So that was why I brought it up.
Yeah, and again, staff, commission members, anybody can join in remotely with the way the setup is supposed to be. So.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Caleb.
Can we physically fit like the entire commission on the dais 6 feet apart?
Probably not. So I already,
So just gotta sit out back with coffee cakes?
yeah, so I already realized I'm gonna get bumped because I'm at the end. I'm gonna get bumped with Jim off to the side table somewhere. So, so we'll have to do what we have to do. But yeah, certainly if you got all 11 members, it's gonna be, it'll be a little bit of a challenge.
I'll sit at the kids' table. That's fine with me.
I'm just interested in the coffee cakes. I mean, I now my head is there. So, Caleb, you have an obligation. I don't know, but I just put it out there, like you offered. But
I prefer some relish.
no, I think logistically, we got to figure it out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's going to be one of those things that we'll just roll with it, I guess, and do the
Yeah,
best that we can.
We'll have the room set up in advance. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the audience seats will
Who
be-
cleans the microphones, right? I mean, there's all sorts of things to consider there.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, hopefully town council figures all of that out for us in the beginning of May.
Yeah.
That's a great job cleaning microphone.
Hey, Rob, I think that we were the first group to go on this virtual tour when it started back in.
Yeah. It's funny you brought that up, Bob, because I was just thinking about that when I was starting the meeting tonight. We're literally, when we meet again, it'll be, I think, exactly to the day. We were the first ones. April 20th, or no, it was April 21st last year. So we're right on.
And that was a rather packed meeting, if I remember correctly. We had over 100 people that were participating in that meeting, and
Oh yeah, Briarwood, the multiple special permit application, over 100 people. Yeah, and it went flawlessly.
everybody was watching us to see what happened so that it didn't happen to them. So I'm glad that the town council is going to lead the charge this time and see how it works out. I don't always like being the guinea pig, you know. Any other comments from members of the commission? Nothing. Rob, you want to talk about items listed under item 9 on the agenda?
Yeah, we have the garage in excess of 3 spaces. Obviously, it's something that seems to be on almost every agenda. So obviously that regulation is working very well, increasing the tax base, and everybody has a chance at due process, including the neighbors. So at any rate, so that's coming up. We have a proposed text amendment for the addition of residential solar arrays. That's in a nutshell, that's an initiative that was kind of on the long list for the Regulation Review Committee, but I had a local entity representing a resident here really pushing this because they had green bank credits that are going to expire, and so they really wanted to get the ability to at least try to install this. Their proposal. And so I just figured the combination of the two, I figured I'd get it on the agenda for discussion. They'll be present. They'll explain, what their desires are to help you understand, what this regulation is all about. I will say that it's largely based upon the Capital Region Council of Governments, the Sustainable Land Use Code project. Basically, it's model land use regulations for sustainable alternative energy and things like that. So, that's what that is. And then we have our Lanning Street application, which I think is going to be on for April 20th. And I think we'll have outside counsel representing the commission for that as well, too, through the entire process. I'm working on that. So that's the big nut. Hopefully it's on the 20th. I mean, you never know. It's been kind of kicked down the road so far, but it seems like they have pretty much a complete application at this point in time. Last thing, it's not on the list, but we did receive today, late in the day, a 6-lot subdivision on Welsh Road. It's a lovely frontage lots in front of the Northridge development, north of the Northridge development. So that'll be coming up too as well.
Okay. On the Rob mentioned on the 830G, the possibility of having outside counsel. Rob and I have worked over the last month or so to try to gain that, and we were recently given the go-ahead to be able to do that. I think that it was, if you may remember, it's one of the suggestions that we heard with the Liberty Street one was that it's always a good idea to have sort of an expert, resident expert in the room to sort of help guide us a little bit. And so I'm appreciative to Rob's efforts, Jeremy's efforts, and also Mark Shoda was involved in that as well. So I appreciate all of that and being able to do that. I think it's going to help us as we go through this next round of 830G out there. And this one is a little bit different because of the sewer and septic issues. They don't have that out in that area, so it gets a little bit more complex than I think the one that we were dealing with a couple months ago. Okay, Rob, you kind of talked to item 10, right?
Yeah.
If no one has anything else, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Selko with a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second Santiago.
I was wondering. I thought maybe we wanted to just stay together. So thanks, Peter. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thanks, y'all.
Okay. Keep your phone in your window.
Yeah, you laugh now, but one day it's gonna happen. And you know who you're gonna think about?
Yep. That's right.
If it ever flies out of my window, Christina, you will be the person I think about. Yes.
It's a traumatic experience. Trust me, I'll never forget it.
I wouldn't forget that. That's unique.
Everyone, stay safe.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Bob, Steve here real quick.
Yep.
I will not be able to attend the next meeting. It's my 35th